Alright, hello everybody. Today we're going to be doing a little bit of theory. I've had a few students express some concern or confusion about why certain notes are where, or how we're getting to some other notes, or I'll talk about chords a little bit and the chord progression, not being totally sure what those are. So I've left it up to them to do a little bit of research, and I found that it is interfering with their practicing, so I'm just going to make a video on it. So here we go. I'm in a blank finale document right now. We're going to start out with theory terms. Alright, so we're just going to go through some terms and what those look like on music. I'm just going to put in some half notes here. 4 measures of half notes, okay? And we're going to start with, very basic, a note, okay? There's just one note. It is a C in treble clef. I'm actually going to go ahead and add a second staff here. Staff, new staves. There we go. Change this one to bass clef. Okay, so now we're going to have some pretty standard piano music here. There we go. So we'll start out with C and C. This is a note. One line below the treble clef and above the bass clef is where the clefs meet, in spite of there being a large space in between. Visually, those are the same note. I'm going to play it. Okay, same note. There's one note. Alright, so that's one note, C. Some basic elements of music are pitch, rhythm, and time. Right now, my time is quarter note equals 120. I'm going to make it 60, which is actually pretty slow, but that is a minute. 1 second is going by for every beat. Okay, now we're going to add some more notes. This is a chord. This is the most common kind of chord where we'll see called a triad. It's called a triad because the notes are stacked in thirds. So let me go ahead and zoom in here. And what is the zoom? Okay. And show you what I mean by thirds. Right next to it, I will make all seconds. So we're counting in numbers here, how far apart the notes are from each other. That's called an interval. So how far apart the notes are from each other. In the second measure here, we have seconds. They're as close as they can be. On the staff and on the piano, these are all white notes right next to each other. Not talking about black notes yet. So the buttons right next to each other. If we skip some buttons, we will get visually on the staff all the notes on the line. Now these are 4 notes I showed you, C, E, B, and D. They all have lines going through them. These are the notes of the major triad. It's called a triad because it has 3 notes in it. It is the basic harmony for Western music. When you're thinking Twinkle Twinkle, Mozart, Beethoven, that's the basic harmonies. Let's go ahead and listen to it. Do not show again. And I've gone ahead and added this low C in the bass, because that's something we will see that's very typical. Now we're going to go through some other triads, half notes, and we're going to make a chord progression. So I'm just going to stack all of these notes right on top of each other, and we're going to go through a few different things here. Let's see. Now if you went to play this on the keyboard, you'd have a little bit of a tough time because your hands will be jumping around. And this is visually jumping around a lot as well. Alright, so now we've got a very typical chord progression. It starts out with one note C. We're in the key of C. All the white notes on the piano, no sharps, no flats, no black notes. We start with the C triad to establish the C in our kind of brain. Then we go to E, starting on E, just stacking right on top of each other, skipping notes in between. Then we go to A, D, G, and C. Let's see how this sounds. Okay, so very simple chord progression. Now when it's a progression, that means that we're going through, well, we're just going through a progression, a series, where we're changing the underlying triad of the music. With a symphony or a full band, when we have things like this is a very simple version of what's happening. There's just 40 or so different instruments and voices, and all that does, it gives us, the notes are the same, the basic notes are the same, but it gives us a different sound. Okay, gives us a different kind of tone quality to listen to, different instruments, and it also allows us to take the same music and move it around the band. So we can take the same idea and just make it a little more interesting and elaborate on it, instead of having to write some sort of really difficult, crazy band work. We just mess with the different sounds of the instruments. Okay, so there's our chord progression using triads. I am going to take the exact same chord progression and I'm going to make it physically easier to play and visually easier to look at by not messing with moving around the notes here so much. Okay, so I've got the note C, E, G I'm starting on, C, and I'm trying to go to these other notes here, E, B, or E, G, and B stacked up. C is right next to B. I've already got E and G right there. So the top two notes of my right hand are going to stay still. If I was playing a wind instrument and I had one of these parts, it would be very simple because I wouldn't have to do this giant B to E jump over there that we're seeing. Okay, now I'm just going to go ahead and make this guy A, D, and F. Now I'm starting to go way down on the treble clef here with this low A. I want to try to bring things up so we're not stepping into the bass clef range. So I'm just going to do this, and we're actually going to end up right back where we started. And that way, my hand, in my right hand, I've only had to move my thumb down by 2 notes. If I was playing a wind instrument, I would only have to move down by 2 notes. The top part has not gone any higher. My pinky has basically stayed in the same spot. In measure 8 here, I'm going to go ahead and just start the playback here. So measure 8. Okay, now we're going to listen to how this sounds. We're going to have the same chord progression. The left hand is the exact same. We have the exact same letters we're using. All I've done is I've moved some of these away from being a basic triad to what's called an inversion. And I've done it so it will be easier to play. Okay, and somehow something strange happened. A, D, G. Somehow the left hand ended up ahead of the right hand. even though I've got the exact same music, I believe. I see what happened. Okay. I forgot the A chord here. My fault. Moving this down to A. And I'm going to try to keep this. I am actually, yeah, we're going to do as little movement as possible here. Alright. And we're just going to keep A the same. And we actually end up with the triad there. Let's see. Okay. So I've changed this around a little bit. Alright, let's listen to it now. My mistake. Okay. Measure 8. Okay, so that's just with triads. I've taken the basic triad where they're stacked exactly vertically, line, 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 space, 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 visually on the staff, line notes and space notes, and I've inverted some of them, so our hands might be a little bit wider apart, or this playing piano, but we definitely do not have to move our hand around at all. We just might open up our pinky a little bit. Alright, so now we've done basic triads and the inversions of those triads and a chord progression, and that really gives us the basic harmony for Western music. Now, let's go ahead and mess around a little bit with the melody and talk about some different numbers for this melody. Okay, so here I'm going to do a melody. Let's start with a simple melody here. First part of Mary Had a Little Lamb. Okay, so because of the confinements of this harmony, or the restrictions of the harmony, I'll give you some examples of what might happen if I have the beginning of this melody here, and it doesn't really line up with the harmony. We're going to get a really, really, really bad sound. I mean, just awful. Okay? And this is going to be the worst. And you may notice I'm using triads, and these are all good triads, but when they conflict with the harmony, like when I have an E right next to an F, right next to a G on piano, we're going to have a really hard time listening to that. Okay, so some of it sounds okay, but especially on the second measure, the second half of that measure there, we really get a big conflict. And I'm just going to go ahead and send this, have it all fit on one staff. Okay, that's better. Okay, so here we go. Now, well, that's an example of wrong notes. So we're basically just trying to avoid that. Okay? So we're going to have, I'm actually going to have this go really low. No, I don't want it to go really low. Okay. So the left hand's actually going to overlap with, I'm going to transpose this up an octave, which is actually, alright, there we go. So now I'm going to have the left hand do the bass and all the harmony. And this is going to go very high in this clef. Okay, so now that first measure, we've got a melody that uses notes from the C scale and the C triad. We have E and C on beat 1 and beat 3, which are the important beats when we're dealing with this classical music. And those line up with this triad, which is exactly what we want. And we're going to have the same thing here. Same triad. Now, measure 3 has a note that is D. Well, I'm going to use what's called the 5, which in the key of C, 5 notes away, is G. And we're going to listen to what that sounds like before we talk about it. Alright. So we've got a little chord progression and our melody. What does it sound like? Same harmony. Now we change. Sounds very nice. And we go back to C. Okay. So I'm going to talk about 3 important chords. They're going to look like this. We're going to talk about 2 to start with. 1 and the 5 in Roman numerals. So we're talking about numbers. Now we're talking about chords that are numbers in C. So if C is 1, D, E, F, G is 5. Oh, the relationship between 1 and 5 is the most important relationship in music of any chords. 5 leads us back to the 1 chord every time we see it. That's where we are going. Almost always, unless we have what's called a deceptive chord. And that deceives you by telling you you're going somewhere where you're not. So that makes it a little interesting, but for now, we're just dealing with this basic stuff. So let's listen to it again. I'm actually going to speed it up to make this video better. Okay. Alright, now I'm going to add a second layer in the left hand, and we're going to have an F here. And it's going to fall down to an E there. Now what that's going to do, that makes this chord, this 5, a 5-7. So pay attention, this is where it gets really weird really fast. We've been talking about our arpeggios as numbers, the 1 arpeggio and the 5 arpeggio in the left hand. By adding F, we add the number after the 5. The 5 was G. 7 notes away from G is F. So in that one measure, we have a 5-7 arpeggio. And we can see here, if we zoom in on that measure, okay, if we zoom in on that measure, we can see the relationship between G and F is 7 notes away. I'm going to go to my speedy entry tool here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 8 is G again. So right before G is F. And we're going to watch this go by, slow-mo, not slow-mo, zoomed in, and listen to how this 5-7 really leads us right into C again. So I've got this kind of, now I've got kind of like a tenor little second melody that's part of the chord progression, but it really leads us right into the 1 again. Okay, so if it's so important, we should be able to do some pretty incredible things with our 5 chords. Whoops. Okay, sorry about that. Alright, so now I'm going to use a 5 chord to completely manipulate the harmony to take us into the black keys on the piano. We're going to start with the C chord. We're going to go to the 4, which is our only other capital letter. I'm going to make a little melody here. Black note. I'm going to have this bass line. Oh, alright. Have this bass line revolve around the note F. Okay. Double Fs. And this is going to be a 5, 7. Alright. Now we're going to have a super... Alright. Now, I've added some black notes. So we've got the 1, the 5, and the 4, which is very common in gospel or church music and the blues, most importantly. Now, we're going to listen to how it sounds. The 1, the 5, and the 4. Alright, let's talk about them a little bit before we get carried away into the black notes. I'm going to add it right here, just 3 quarter notes. Okay, these are our major arpeggios in a key signature. Okay, I'm going to do them like that, and I'm also going to write them out as triads. 1, 4, 5. Now, these are the only chords in a major scale that have the same sound. They all sound major, they all sound happy. All of the other ones are not as far apart. All the other chords have a different number of black notes in between the notes. So we get a really different sound from the other chords in a major scale. Up here, at the very beginning, we had a lot of minor chords. The 3, the 6, and the 2 are all minor chords. Okay, so these are our major chords that all sound happy. 18, 19, let's go to that, to measure 21, and listen to how happy they sound. When we get into some other chords, it gets weird really fast. Okay, so those are our happy chords. Now, I'm going to use all of our capital letter chords, the 1, the 4, and the 5, and especially the 5, 7, to bring us to some weird places. 5, 7, 1. You may notice the 1 is B flat. It is a B flat major chord. It is no longer C. So we're going to listen to how different we are sounding now. Okay, so everything sounds fine once we get to the B flat chord. On our way there, we get a pretty weird E flat in the melody. Oh, let's listen again slower. Alright, so when we get to the B flat chord, I feel like it's a pretty happy sound. We've gotten somewhere. But it does sound weird on the way there, the 5, 7. So we can take this 5, 7, and I'm going to just transpose it down by chromatically by a major third. Okay, let's that looks really bad. Let's do chromatically up by a major third. Okay, so now we're going to be going to a B chord. Okay, so now listen to this, and I'm just going to move the melody. Okay, and I'm actually just going to take out this chord. Alright. Oh, why? Okay, measure 18. Here we go. Okay, so now we've gone from the key of C to the key of B just by messing with the 5-7 chord. So the 5-7 can take us anywhere, almost at any time. Usually there are some rules for how we get there, but that's the basics of it. We have the 1, the 4, and the 5 as our notes, as our important chords. Now let's summarize this basic theory kind of chord progression lesson with some more simple stuff. Now that we've talked about the chords, this is all stuff my students see in their basic piano books. These things, these chords. So now we're going to talk about the distance between notes and how we're getting around to these different numbers. I'm just starting on C every time. Starting on C every time and going to some different notes in the key of C. These are all the white notes of the piano. Okay, you may notice they're getting further and further apart from each other. Definitely visually, and they do on the piano also. Your hand's getting wider and wider. So I've been talking about thirds. And the 1 chord, the 4 chord, the 5 chord, the 6, etc., etc. This is the first chord of C. C. Let's just switch to the pointer. C. Okay? We have D, which is, if C is the first, D is the second, which means E is going to be the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, going to A and 7, and 8, which is an octave for 8. Okay, so those are the different basic intervals on the white notes of the piano of the C scale. These are going to be the basic triads. And if I'm going to play this back for you, and we're going to listen to the different sounds we're getting from, especially that last one I just did, the B. Oh, sorry, it automatically went back up to the top, starting at measure 18. Now I'm going to go ahead and add a C arpeggio in here. Okay, C is just on the rest of them. This second measure, measure 19, we have the 1, the 6, the 4, the 1 again, and the 5. These are our only happy sounding major triads in a major scale. The other ones sound a little bit different. They sound sad. You may say they sound crunchy. They sound close together. They sound like they're leading us towards something else. It's all happy. Now weird. All right. So there we go. That's that. And in the major scale, these are the most important numbers to begin with. This chord here has an important note, B. It is called the leading tone. So that's part of the 5-7, is that leading tone that leads us around. So this has all been basic theory in the key of C. We talked a little bit about the basic chords, how we get the chords stacked visually on top of each other. Just like my fingers, a triad, we have space in the middle. We're not playing those two notes. A triad is skipping notes. Okay? Then, to that, we added the inversions, which takes this triad, and instead of doing this on the piano, having jump around, we're just going to do this maybe. And we still have these different inversions. Okay, where we're flipping around the notes. And all that does is let us keep our hand in the same basic spot. And for our ears, it sounds a little bit more consistent. It sounds closer together. The left hand is jumping around, and the left hand is playing the bottom of all of those triads. Okay? So that's a bass line. Then we added the 5/7 and talked about how these different chords fit with a melody. So the melody is designed to sound good over those chords. It is the note of the chords, but it is broken up a little bit. We're not playing it all at once. C chord, C chord, C chord, G chord. Okay? And there's that F, E that is the motion of a 5/7. Okay? At the very bottom, we talked actually about the more basic stuff, just the distance between the notes. I added some arpeggios, or not arpeggios, some triads on top of that, so you guys can visually see how all of those single notes become their triads. Alright, so now that is the first part of the theory video. Now I'm going to have a second one going out for my jazz students, where I'm going to bring up a smart music. Actually, I cannot screen cap on smart music. So I'm just going to do it in this one. Okay? Let me go ahead and bring up some jazz works that I've done, and we're just going to talk about them. That's not what I want. Okay. Alright, let's go ahead and do this. Let's see, one that's pretty much complete. Okay, here we go. This is Bourbon Street Parade, a New Orleans kind of bluesy sounding standard out of New Orleans. Now, right away it looks horribly busy. I am going to go and extract the, if I can figure out how to do this, I'm going to extract the trumpet part that has a melody and the chord progression written above it. I need the staff tool. Oh boy, here we go. You know what? I think I already have it extracted. I do. Okay. Trumpet. Oh, what? Wrong trumpet. Trumpet in B flat. Maybe it is the clarinet. There we go. All right. So we have a melody. We have some style written here. Swing. We have the melody. Above it, you can see there's the B flats and the A's, the chord progression that we talked about, and we've got some 7s written in that are going to lead us to different places. Okay, so we start out in B flat, then we end up being in C a lot, come back to the beginning music, and then we've got this whole thing here, which is slowly leading us around the B flat. So we're just going to listen to it. All right. So we've got a little bit of, not the melody, but the counter melody here going on. And we're now going to listen to the whole thing to see what it all sounds like with the harmonies changing around. You can hear the bass line. And throughout here, we've just got the bass line making us our chord progression and the piano and the guitar a little bit. And that's about it. We have a melody and we have the harmony beneath it. The melody is fitting into the triads of the harmony. We have some black notes coming up. We're going to talk about for my jazz students. We're going to start out with actually the same one, the same 4, and the same 5, 7, going to the 1. This is a simplified version of the blues. I'm going to have a melody and my harmony underneath. I'll just do all quarter notes. I'm going to start with C. I'm going to use notes from the Triad. And we're going to go to this. And I'm going to add some notes that are from the blues scale. Okay, we're going to see how that sounds. And this is going to sound a little different. Let's put triads on top. So, if you are one of my classical piano students, this is not going to so much apply to you. I encourage you guys to keep practicing over break. If you have any questions, consult this video about the triads, how the chords are going through. If you want to keep going and learn about some of the black notes and how we can use them to get around, keep watching. Here we go. And that E flat sounds pretty crunchy, pretty bad on beat 1. And then it resolves right away to a happier sound. Alright, so let's listen again. Alright, so that's a little bit of some little jazzier melodies, but we still have the same basic harmonies. And all of this, we have the same basic harmonies. Okay? Now we're going to go through the blues scale. The blues scale is based on what is called the minor pentatonic scale. It has 5 notes in the scale. Then we get the tonic, the 1 again. Okay? C, E flat, F, G, B flat. We're going to add the note F sharp, which is called the blue note. It is the most important note as far as distinguishing it as the blues, as opposed to just a minor sounding harmony. Alright, minor is, I've talked about this a lot with my students, so I'm covering a lot of the basics we've talked about, but minor is just a little bit sad sounding as opposed to major. Now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to play that. Oh, maybe not? Okay, come on. Alright, there we go. Now we're going to take this and add harmony to it, which means we're going to be a little bit confined as to which notes of the blues scale we can use at which time. We do not want we're only going to be using notes that are going to sound good with what the rhythm section, or in this case the left hand of the piano, is doing. Okay? And you may have noticed right away we've got very, very crunchy sound. Because I'm adding sevens to all of this. What's that? Oh, okay. Alright, and this really gives us the blues sound. Adding sevens on every chord, including the one chord, gives us a lot of dissonance and tension in the harmony, and it keeps the motion perpetual. Okay, we just keep on going until we get the original blues. We're going to end and just have a nice happy resolution at the very end. Okay, so now we're going to talk about what notes to use, when we can use some of these black notes. Start with C. We're going to take that scale and mix it with notes in the harmony. So, in this key, I have E natural. E natural. There is the triad. Okay? You may notice that note is not in the blues scale. So, I'm going to go ahead and do this. As an option for us to use. Now we're getting some different options for improvisation. Now we've got this whole middle section is completely chromatic. Alright? Okay. Now let's start from measure 12. See how it sounds. And I'm actually going to play another E natural here and E flat there. Okay, that sounded fine. Now I've got E flat because it's part of, it is the 7 of F, the 4. Okay, so now we're really getting the black notes. And then I'm going to have just an F triad, which adds A. So now we're really getting into some different notes and different options for us to use. Okay. Okay, actually sounds pretty good. The measures have been expanded, so we're going to have to move these over. Alright. Now we're going to a 5. Let's just do an inversion of the 5-7. There we go. We're going to start at measure 12. Listen to what happens when we get to the 5. Okay, now I've got 2 1s at the end there, which we wouldn't normally see. But you can see we've just got, this is a good option to use. I'm actually going to make what's called a sequence, where I'm going to do the exact same thing over the 5 as I'm doing, or I'm sorry, over that first one as I'm doing over the 5. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and change the harmony here. Now 5, 4, 1 is something we will see in the blues all the time. Alright, there we go. So that's about it for different kind of melody notes to use over certain harmonies. Now I'm going to go ahead and get out my trumpet here. So this is all about picking melody notes, especially when we're improvising. This is all about picking melody notes that sound good with the harmonies. In the first half hour or so of the video, we talked about what notes are included in those harmonies. And this is mainly when we're talking about quarter notes. We don't want to have a giant quarter note or a half note that just really conflicts with the harmonies. So if we can meet the triad, match the notes of the triad on some important beats, then we're going to be in a really good place. And that's all we should really be worrying about. And then we're going to try to develop a melody. So I'm going to go ahead and look at the St. Louis blues, a really typical blues. Alright. No, none of that. Alright, is this it already? We're already here. St. Louis blues. Here we go. C chord. And that's the bar line, 12 bars, 12 bar blues. Now if we look at the melody, we're going to see some black notes. Everything actually pretty much makes sense in the key of F. It starts out with just an arpeggio in F. C we just have an arpeggio in C. When we get on these B flat chords, we're starting to get into some weirder black notes. A flat over here is just the 7 of B flat, and it is in the blues scale of F. So that's fine. This note here, it's on an offbeat. They just did it to be a little bit chromatically interesting. Okay? Now I'm going to go ahead and do a simple, really simple improvised solo. F, now going to C. Now I almost only used the notes in their different arpeggios. I did use a B natural to chromatically make it a little more interesting running into B flat. I used it right where this chord rest is on the offbeat. I'm not going to hang on to it for 4 beats because then it just sounds bad against F. But it made it a little bit more interesting, and then it resolved right away, so people know, oh, okay, there's a little bit of tension and release right away. We don't just want to be sitting there with our hands slammed against all the notes of the piano for 4 measures. That is not what we want. If we want something to sound crunchy, bad, we want it to resolve right away, so we get that forward propulsion. We don't just want it to sound like a train car crashed, and then we're in a train wreck, and then the whole band is off. Everyone's confused. Okay? So we're just going to try to stick to the rules here of the arpeggios. Now, all I'm going to do is add the blues scale to those arpeggios, and that's going to give me the note A flat, which you already see. It's going to give me the note E flat, which I'm really not going to be too tempted to use. I'm going to use E flat only on the F7 measure, because it doesn't really take me anywhere except to the B flat chord. E flat chromatically is right next to D. That's where it's going to lead me. Okay? And it also gives me B natural, the blue note. And that's going to lead me to my C chord. So listen to the different times in which I use those. E flat to C. Okay, so I'm sorry, not E flat to C, E flat to D. Alright, now I'm going to get going here with the iRealBook program, the app, an incredible app, and I'm going to let you guys listen to what it sounds like with a rhythm section. I'm going to play the melody firstly. I'm just going to do 12 bars of the melody, and then I'm going to go ahead and just start improvising. My first solo, the first 12 bars, I'm going to just keep things simple and easy, and as I go on, I'm going to elaborate more and more with those chromatic notes that exist inside the blues scale, that the blues scale gives us. Some chromatic options. And so I'm just going to start out with triads. Everything's going to be pretty simple. And rhythms will be simple. Notes will be simple. I'm going to develop a little bit of a melody. And then I'm really going to start elaborating and adding some more chromatic notes. And that's all I'm trying to get when I'm practicing improvisation, is did I get the right arpeggios, chords in, and when I added chromatic notes, did they go to where they were supposed to? In this song I would almost never play an F sharp, and if I did, it would lead me right into F natural probably, or maybe right into the G of the C chord. Okay? So I'm going to start out with A flat, B natural, and E flat as my chromatic notes. And they're going to go right next door. Okay? Here comes a simple improvisation. All right, chromatic. There we go. I'm going to do some more. Now, I'm going to try to use some long notes, common notes that work on everything. That B flat went, B natural went right into the C. All right. Now, just some examples there of some different notes. So start out with just simple triads, just like we had in the finale show I did, explaining the theory. Start out with simple triads. We added some sevens, which gave us our chromatic notes in the blues scale, the flats and naturals and sharps in the blues scale that aren't in the key signature we're in. And then I started to try to develop some common notes between chords, linking things together, giving me a 4-bar, basic 4-bar idea. Now, last thing I'm going to do, try to get a melody I like. I'm going to maybe draw from this melody a little bit, and I'm going to try to drag it across all 4 bars so we get a nice phrase. And my solo is going to look just like this looks. I want it to be a chunk of 4 bars, and another chunk of 4 bars. And you might notice that's exactly how the melody is designed. Alright, here we go. Melody first. Here we go. Similar rhythm. Okay, so that last chorus, that last 12 bars, I had some ideas. I just kind of experimented with dragging them over over different measures, and sometimes they didn't quite work. Sometimes I was trying to play too loud, then it's mute next to me and it lets me, and I cracked a couple notes. I really can't play open in here, so now let's do one more, and my last improv practice I'm going to try to do. After I've really gotten the melody, I've really expanded on the melody with my idea, I've made sure the triads I'm playing are correct, I made sure the chromatic notes I've added might sound a little crunchy, and then they resolve immediately. I do not want to hang on to a B natural over any of this for 4 beats. It'll just sound bad. Okay? So now I'm going to try to get some what's called running eighth notes. This is both a test of whether I know the scale very well, and it's also a test of whether I know the song and the arpeggios of the song very well. And I'm just going to try to do my best. Now, it is the blues. I'm going to do my best to make it sound like the blues by adding some of these blue notes, but If I can't make it happen, it's just gonna have to sound like a bunch of eighth notes. So this is just kind of a practice technique. Take a breath. Okay, so I did pretty well. As a solo, I don't think that was very good because it didn't have a really consistent melody. I was just kind of practicing eighth notes. So that's the last thing I would try to do to see improv practice, see if I know the song. I'm going to leave you guys with doing, let's see, we're going to do all of the St. Louis Blues. And I'm going to play the entire melody, and then we're going to, any repeats? Alright, when it repeats, I'm going to just play an improv solo. Here we go. Let's do chord note equals 120. Alright, and the chords for the St. Louis Blues were not right there. It doesn't have this next part in it. So that got a little bit messed up. But let's do a legit solo. E natural, it goes right into F. Alright, got some silly low notes in there, some silly high notes. Really sounds bad with the mute. Well, not really bad, just not as good as the middle range. But notice the note choice. There were a couple times when I added B naturals and E naturals, they went right where they were supposed to right away. I even had a couple what I call licks. Whoops. Didn't have the mute in. And I just kind of held on those for a little bit, made a little melody, and all the rules were followed. Nothing sounded bad. It sounded like the blues, and that's all we're trying to get. So this is about an hour-long video, which is just what I wanted. Don't watch it all at once. Don't practice it. Do not practice it all at once. Watch the basic theory part, first half hour. Then for my jazz students, watch this part, just trying to fit in with the chords. If you have any questions, email me comment on the video, say, at 45 minutes, what are you talking about when we're talking about the blue note? Chris, I have a song that's in the key of G. What's the blue note? Is it still B natural? No, it would be C sharp. So go ahead and ask me some questions. I can't do lessons while I'm over my July break. I can respond to questions through email. I will have my smartphone. I will have my tablet on the trip. If no one watches the video, that means no one's practiced. They haven't gotten their information. And it also means I will totally not be covering this material in the lesson. I want to get you guys ready for school. You got about a month and a half, maybe 2 months left of break. And we're getting ready for school with playing. We're not going to be messing around with theory. If a different kind of theory question comes up, I'm going to be posting some terms, musical dictionary kind of things on the website while I'm over the break. I'll find a few good links. We'll be posting that. I think this just about covers all the basic theory my jazz students have had about improvising and my classical students have had about what's going on with this 7, what's going on, what's this chord progression doing, why all of a sudden do I see this black note a lot when I'm in C position, and maybe it probably is F sharp and it's leading us to be in G position. It's just the 5 going to 1 G, D, F. D, 7, and we're in G. Alright, so I hope that made sense. I hope the finale really helped out with the visual stuff. And we should be good to go for summer. If you have any questions, please comment. If you want to see more videos, I'll probably be doing a couple while I'm on vacation, just for some practice technique kind of things while you're on vacation. So comment, rate, subscribe. Students, please send me an email.